Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Today I have the pleasure of chatting with Chef Anja. Anja is the owner of Anja Lee and Company and Tiny Kitchen, an online cooking club that empowers others to confidently cook in their own home kitchen. Chef Anja has been on a mission to create joy, health, and smiles through food. This has led her to creating impactful catering and cooking class companies, cooking for celebrities and Fortune 100 company CEOs, and traveling the world to cook. In 2016, she started catering for NBA championship teams, such as the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Golden State Warriors. Anja has cooked on the Food Network with Alton Brown, on Cutthroat Kitchen, and recently as the winner of Supermarket Stakeout. Chef Anja is a cookbook author, and her cookbook, How to Cook Healthier, can be found in Whole Foods and on Amazon. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Whitney.
So tell me, how did you get started as a chef and a personal chef?
Oh, baby. You know, it goes way back. It goes back to just my love for cooking since I was a kid. And, in college, I would cook at restaurants and whatnot, but I always just looked forward to more than anything cooking for my friends and my family. And just bringing people together and having fun around food. So those were my favorite nights. All my friends knew me as, the person who'd cook for everyone, and we'd come together and cook. And so after college, I was looking for what my career might be and what my next job might be. And a family friend of ours invited me to be her go-to personal chef. And so she worked with all sorts of high-paying clients in Tahoe. Lake Tahoe is where I'm from. And so she said, Anja, do you want to be my go-to chef? And I'll send you to all these homes and you can cook, come up with a menu. So I did, and she started pitching me, and I had a blast cooking for all these families. Was pretty quickly cooking for the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, Kyle Richards and her family, CEO of Mattel, and the founder of AOL, all sorts of people. So anyway, I really got thrown into the sharks quickly, but it came from a lifetime of just loving to cook and everyone knowing that about me.
That is so interesting. How old were you when you started?
I want to say I was around 10 years old. And that's when my mom was like, Anja, I think you can try to cook dinner for us now. Because I always loved cooking with her and cooking with my Mimi or my grandma. And so, yeah, it was young. It was really young.
So how did it go from picking up these jobs, working for some celebrity clients, to getting to work for the Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers as one of their chefs?
Jumping right into the fun stuff. Yeah. Well, again, it just came from passion, I think. So, skipping a lot of this story, when I started my catering company, which was after a pause from cooking. I actually went into software for a little while, and then I decided, what the heck, I'm going to go back into food. So, started a catering company, but I had to fund it with something else because it was very, inconsistent revenue. And so I was working at Equinox gyms, teaching workout classes, best butt ever, and cycling and all sorts of good stuff. And one of the other instructors knew the trainer of the Cleveland Cavaliers. She was great friends with him because they would actually use the same facility sometimes to train when they were in town to play the Golden State Warriors. And so they were looking for a caterer in their locker room. They wanted something really healthy. I was very health focused. And starting my company, I had told everyone, I'm a caterer, call me, And she gave him my number, and I picked up my phone one day, and I was working on my computer and said, he said, do you want to come cook for the Cavaliers? It's in our locker room. It's in 4 days. Which I didn't have any of the equipment or anything at the time. But I did it. My mom came down from Tahoe, slept in my little bed in my one-bedroom apartment in San Francisco, and we cooked for 4 days straight and started cooking in the locker room for the Cleveland Cavaliers. So that's how it started. I'll stop there to see if you have questions.
Do you remember what you made?
Oh my gosh. what did I make? We made so many things for them because I cooked for them a lot over the years. But, okay, yes. So we had to cook in their locker room where there's no kitchen. And I was still figuring out what it meant to transport food and keep it hot. So, like, I didn't really even know what a Cambro was. Like, you know, you keep the food hot. I didn't have any of the equipment to do it. But I wanted to cook them some steak and some shrimp. And so, you know, I made a marinated steak with some chimichurri and a really great garlic lime sauce for the shrimp. And we had it marinated, but I was like, I don't know how to cook it and serve it to them hot. So we requested that we be able to bring a barbecue into the stadium in just the parking lot where everyone else is hanging out. And, you know, my boyfriend at the time well, he's not my husband. He loaded the barbecue onto a rented truck that he found on Get Around. We brought the barbecue to the stadium. You know, the boys were out, Cavaliers were out playing in the game, and we were out in the parking lot grilling steaks and grilling shrimp and throwing it into a dish to bring inside and serve, which they had never seen that before. I promise you that. But it turned out great, and they loved it. So we got the call back.
Oh, that's so fantastic, and that's really impressive. So how did those opportunities ultimately lead you to continue to build your catering business and then end up being on shows on the Food Network?
Man. I mean, you know, one thing leads to another, but you don't always know how it all connects, right? And I think it all stems back from my love for what I was doing and that I was telling everyone, you know, this is what I'm doing and this is why. And then just people supporting me. But for the food, well, I'll jump back to the Warriors because that's an easy transition. When we were cooking for the Cavs, we, the Warriors, pretty much the ball boys, essentially, the guys that were helping out in the locker room for the Warriors, they would come into the Cavs locker room after the Cavs left, and they would come eat all of our leftovers. So, you know, they didn't love whatever they were getting in their locker room. They liked what we had, and we became great friends with them. They were all just fun to hang out with. While we were cleaning up, we were throwing a ball around the room and having a good time. And it turns out one of those guys ended up getting to be promoted to the person who organized all the catering for the Warriors. So, yeah, so he ended up calling me and saying, hey, do you want to cook for the Warriors too? And that led us to cooking in their locker room for about 3 years. So
that's incredible. So when you're cooking for them, how many days a week are they needing support from you?
It was a rotation. So they had a couple different caterers that they'd try to rotate through because we would cook off site and then bring it in and serve it to them. So it really was only a couple times a month because they, you know, a lot of their games are off in another city, which we were only San Francisco. And then they would rotate through caterers in San Francisco when they were playing. So a few times a month, which was great because it left us the capacity to be able to still do all the other wonderful events that we wanted to do, the big company events and the weddings and the whatnot. Yeah.
So how did you start to transition your career? So how did you start to transition it to ultimately more of a online cooking classes, team trainings, community events, and kind of further away from the catering? When did that transition start to happen?
That's a great question. You know, so jumping back a little bit to what you mentioned before, the Food Network. When I got a call to be on the Food Network and I went and I was on Cutthroat Kitchen with Alton Brown, I had so much fun just like fooling around in this, you know, really fun filming situation where we were cooking all sorts of stuff, trying new things, having a great time. And so that inspired me to start teaching, teaching essentially, because it's a different part of your brain. You're learning a lot of different things. You're being more creative in a different way, and you're really working one-on-one with people. And so the dream for me has always been to have my own cooking show, and teaching is just on a smaller scale. So that really led me to just starting a cooking class company on the side of catering, which was in person at the time. I built up what we called Silicon Chef, which was eventually Silicon Valley people coming to compete in an Iron Chef setting. And I pretended like I was the judge, and they would create, a meal in 1 hour from all the ingredients I gave them with a secret ingredient and a theme. And so we were recreating essentially some of the things that I had seen and I had done on the Food Network. And then COVID hit, and with COVID, I had to close down the catering facility pretty quickly. And sometimes one thing leads to another and leads to another in life, and it's a really good thing. And while I was thriving with catering, I loved every moment of working with the clients and working with my team and putting an event together. It was hard, long hours. It was a lot of weekends. It was a lot of, 2 a.m. nights where I'd wake up the next morning feeling like a train hit me. And I just thought, well, gee, if I have the opportunity to have a little more of a well-rounded lifestyle, a little more of a life-work balance, and still be able to be passionate about what I'm doing, then I should explore that. So I sold off everything in catering. I said, I'm moving to the next step. And I started to offer virtual classes, which has led to virtual team building, always a blast. And then also our cooking club, Tiny Kitchen. And Tiny Kitchen, has been the most exciting yet for me because I really get to take everything I learned from restaurants and catering and what worked the best and teach others how to cook those recipes and also teach others how to eat a little healthier, like I learned from the Cavs and like I learned from the Warriors on how to just fuel your body and make you feel really good. So it's kind of a combination of everything, and it's progressed into just working with others and hosting my own smaller version of a cooking show.
What are some of those tips that you learned about having to feed athletes? When you were cooking for those teams, were you given restrictions or guidelines on what they needed to make sure was on the menu?
Yes, and it depended on which team. So each team was different, and they all had different budgets. The Cavaliers were because I did actually cook for other teams too when they would visit town, but those were the two main ones. So the Cleveland Cavaliers were by far the strictest, and that's because their trainer and their nutritionist, really worked hard to make sure that they were getting the guys that they needed. But also they had to cater to what they would actually be wanting to eat. These teams are on the road and they're fed whatever they're given. They don't get a lot of choice all the time. And some of them really want what they're familiar with. They want plain grilled chicken and brown rice and asparagus, or whatever. But the dietary restrictions I was most often given were very clean. So, no processed anything, no high fructose corn syrup, no bad oils, no canola oil, no vegetable oil, no processed sugars, stuff like that. Just keep it really clean. And that was number one. And I cooked that way for myself, so that was easy. And then number two, we really avoided a lot of dairy. Sometimes we'd maybe put a little bit of cheese on the side, but they really wanted to keep dairy out of the way, especially pre-game, because it can just really upset your stomach before you're out there running like crazy. And then we avoided high acidity. So, not a lot of tomato dishes pre-game, a lot of stuff like that. Anything that, again, would upset the stomach. They loved simple, clean, high-quality carbs like forbidden black rice or brown rice or quinoa. They loved really clean, easy-to-eat meats like chicken or salmon or shrimp, things of that nature. And then lots of vegetables. We'd have, 4 or 5 different kinds of roasted, sauteed, whatever it might be, vegetables. We used a lot of avocado oil, just high quality fat, coconut oil, a lot of homemade granola and coconut whipped cream to avoid the dairy and stuff like that. But yeah, that was the gist of it.
Got it. Since you've started doing more online classes, cooking classes, team building, are there certain things that you find that are more fun and that you enjoy most when you're doing team cooking classes?
Oh, I just love the people. I love seeing those smiling faces. With team building classes, it's a lot of repetitive classes for me. So the food, while I think it's really good and it turns out delicious, it's a lot of the same. So it's less exciting. But I'm still proud of what we created for the recipes. But seeing those people come on and maybe they feel a little obligated to be there and they might be faking it at first, faking the smiles. I truly think by the end of class, those smiles are very genuine and they can't believe that they just made a homemade pizza from scratch and they're serving it to their family and they can't believe the praise that they're getting from their family. Or whatever the recipe might be, homemade tacos with homemade corn tortillas and whatnot. But the cooking club is extremely rewarding for myself because I'm cooking a different recipe every single week and I'm making things that I genuinely cannot wait to eat myself. So we have a ramen class next week and I love making ramen. I don't make it for myself enough. It's going to be really exciting and new for my husband. I've perfected this recipe so that we can all have a great time making it. But it's new and exciting, and that's each week. I also love working with other chefs. So you're going to be our second guest chef ever in Tiny Kitchen. Woohoo!
So excited.
It's going to be awesome. You're going to do great. And, it's just such a joy to see what's important to you. What are you going to teach me? There's so much that I still have left to learn. And, my grandma's always been great at making a whole roasted chicken. And I've called her a million times and I have not totally succeeded in making that crispy skin. So to see what you have to teach us is a dream. So the collaboration element of it, of like, who can I work with? Who can we show off? Who's just dominating in the industry that, I want to become great friends with and work with. And so that's you. And that's a huge part of it.
Thank you. Well, what I love about the cooking classes that you offer and just some insight for people that are wondering why you should take an online cooking class when you can just open up a cookbook. There's so much you can't teach in a cookbook. There's only so many tips you can put along the side of the recipe to support people in preparing their food at home. When you can do a cooking class and prepare it with people together over a Zoom call, a computer, whatever it may be, you can teach so many more nuggets that they can take away and that will empower them to make that recipe again without you.
Absolutely. And the questions that come up are always things that I would have not thought of myself. It's constant. The questions that come in, I'm like, wow, thank you. Thank you for thinking of that because I would not have, and being a teacher, the more that you're asked these questions, the more you realize, okay, I'm pretty good at my job. I actually know the answers to these, and so being able to have that constant, back and forth between them, also be holding their hand through the whole process. And so they can't lose track of anything, and they really do feel confident at the end that they did it well. Again, that's hard to do in a cookbook. You can read one line that messes you up completely, or you could just forget something, So I agree. It's much more personal.
It is, and I agree with you. Even as chefs, we can read a certain line in the preparation process and not be able to figure out exactly how the onion's supposed to be sliced or something's going to be whipped. Those little minute things. And sometimes it's not worth going on and on about. You just have to make a decision and go with it. Try the dish that way and then know how to adjust it next time just to meet your personal preferences.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's something I love to teach in classes too, is that you don't always have to follow the recipe and that your gut is you're way better at cooking because of instinct than you probably realize. And a lot of the time it just takes tasting your food, just takes taking a moment and thinking okay, what did I put in it? What did I like that I put in it? What do I not like that I put in it? And so maybe I could do more of this and less of that,
Yeah. One time, so when I was long before I went to culinary school, there was a place in Dallas for great grab and go food that I would always go with friends. And I just started to notice over time that the food didn't have much flavor. And a friend was sharing with me that when food is prepped in large quantities, for grab and go, it's often not seasoned that hard because most people don't like a lot of seasoning. And when it's seasoned light, you can then adjust it to your preferences when you get home. And I think that's like a great tip for when people are in a cooking class or trying a new recipe for the first time. You can make it again and adjust the flavor. You don't have to follow the script. You can make changes.
Absolutely. Totally. And a lot of the time when we're cooking, when I'm teaching the class, and I'm sure you'll be the same, I'll say, okay, throw a little bit of this in there and then taste it. And if you want more, throw a little bit more in and taste it. And yeah, you got to really, and smell it before you add it to see how much you really like it. Because you don't want to add too much if you don't even like the smell of it, right? So yeah, I agree. So you lived in Dallas before this.
So I'm from Laguna Beach, and I went to college at SMU in Dallas, and there is a great place there called Eatzi's. Okay. It's kind of one of those old school, it's like kind of a version of Erewhon, I would say, but more old school, traditional, just where you can go and you can get, great skirt steak marinated different ways and already pre-cooked so you can just grab it and take it home. You can get homemade cornbread. You can have gourmet sandwiches custom made to what you want. Gourmet salads custom made to what you want. Everything's a little elevated as well. Delicious food. And, just one of those places that really provided a lot of joy and passion for me long before I went into the culinary space.
Wow. So a little bit of an inspiration?
Very much so, yeah. That, and I would say, it's hard just because I'm like you. I've just always been into food and cooking, it's just always been there.
Okay, cool. And then I know, we're supposed to be talking about me, but I want to talk about you. And from Dallas, you got back here and you came back, and then did you dive into culinary school, or how'd you dive into culinary?
So interesting. So after I graduated college in Dallas, I stayed there for 2 years and worked a corporate job. And I was working for a major corporation, for Ernst & Young, and they offered me an opportunity in their LA office. So I thought, hey, someone wants to pay for me to move back to California. I'm new in my 20s. I just kind of thought at the time that every opportunity you're offered, you're supposed to take. I would learn later to trust my gut feelings, but I took the opportunity and I moved to LA, and that's where I fell in love with health, like real health food, just learning everything about health and wellness, living at Erewhon, exploring all different types of exercises, spiritual practices. And that's when I knew that I needed to shift my career in that direction. But while I was living in LA for 5.5 years, I couldn't figure out how I was going to start working in that industry. So then I moved to Washington, D.C., and took more corporate jobs in Washington, D.C. And then that's when I finally woke up and applied to go to culinary school, then moved to New York City, went to culinary school, and then moved back to California and started all over.
Wow. It's a journey. That's part of it, right?
It is.
Like we're finding, what's important to us through this journey. And then if we can make it into a career, it's the dream come true, which sounds like I said, I went into software for a while. Like I get it. We had to do that regular job, and you probably learned a lot that you're able to apply to now your business that you maybe didn't learn in culinary school, So
yeah, and I had similar experiences to you, like working as a day-to-day chef, and then other opportunities would come along that were still in the culinary world, but stopped me from working as a chef. And I took them because, you need that break. It's hard on the body, it's hard emotionally, but I knew it wouldn't last long, that the universe wasn't going to allow me to take a desk job, that I had to keep cooking, and that there was something there more important for me to do. And so sure enough, those jobs naturally have transitions and you're back working as a chef. So, I love learning about your story and how each opportunity you've had has led to the next. It's pretty incredible.
Absolutely. Yep. And it's still happening. It happens all the time. I'm always curious as I build this, what is this going to lead to? What is this going to become? What is this going to grow to be? I have my vision, but I'm also like, I'm not set on my vision. Anything can happen, And so a lot of the times you have to listen and let people's suggestions guide you and see what's working and what's not. And also the times, like COVID was a very obvious one, but with inflation or grocery prices changing or just people wanting to go out more or stay in more, or people having, maybe your followers are a certain age group, and so they're starting to have babies, and so they want to stay in more and cook for their family where they used to want to go out. You have to listen to that and try to adjust and make it work as you go.
So what's the big vision? Fill us in so we can help manifest it with you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Big vision is that, we have a big club of lots of people who not only have the opportunity to cook with me, but more often guest chefs. So hopefully cooking more often with you, and just really helping people feel more confident cooking healthier in the kitchen. And I think that element of like, okay, I can cook something, but if I do this substitution, is it still going to taste good? Feeling really confident. So big vision would be having a lot of people on the class, perhaps having a studio where I also could be teaching in person as well as online, perhaps having a more built out blog, maybe even a magazine of some sort, just really diving into to helping people understand how to confidently cook healthier and cook these recipes that were cooked for professional athletes on the Food Network and all sorts of things. I also, Whitney, am on a mission to try to make chef coats cuter for women because they're so lame and they make us look like men, and they all have that same cut and they're kind of stiff, and like, why can't we have poofy sleeves and poofy shoulders and have like a cuter collar, and so that's part of the vision.
I love that. Well, I actually have to say I have found a chef jacket that I love. So I love wearing a chef jacket and an apron because I think it's like a lot of different jobs, whether you're a doctor putting on scrubs or a police officer putting on your uniform. When I put on my chef's jacket and apron, it helps me switch into work mode. It helps me get going and starting. And then when I take it off, I can move out of that role. And even when I cook from home, so sometimes I do recipe testing for different brands and products, I have to put on at least the apron to switch mentally into that role. I don't know, do you ever feel that way when it comes to the uniform that you like to wear when you work?
I do, but my home, is where I do everything. So sometimes I'm like, do I need to wear this chef's coat right now? I really like my outfit I just put on. But yes, I think also for home chefs, since that's a little bit more of like the focus right now, is to give them that opportunity to switch mentalities, right? They're like, okay, I'm going to the kitchen. I want to get in my home cook mode, my home chef mode. I'm going to put on this apron, but like an apron doesn't cover all of your whole cute shirt, so to have something a little more chef-like to put on, but when your friends come and they're hanging out in the kitchen with you, you still look really cute and hip. So, and then you take it off and you have another cute shirt on, to have that something that's like really protects that nice shirt you have, but also makes you look really, really good. That's what I'm thinking. But yes, I agree. You do want to have that apron or that transition, something so that you get in that mindset and that focus.
So when you're cooking at home, whether it's doing one of your cooking classes online or you're just cooking for yourself and your husband, do you have particular tools that you lean on that you have to have in the kitchen and you love sharing with people in your cooking class? I'd love to know some of the tools that you can't live without.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. First of all, having a big cutting board. You got to have a big one, right? I've got my 2 big ones and I've got them right there where I cut everything and I just pull them out so easy. And I use that all the time. I hate the little plastic flimsy ones. not okay. I need to get a good brand recommendation for a cutting board, but yeah, it's got to be big. And then a solid, sharp knife that you just are obsessed with. Just one. I use one 90% of the time. I love my Nakano knife. So Nakano knives.com. They reached out to me years ago and said, you have to try our knife chef. It's going to be the best thing you've ever tried. And they sent me what's called the Damascus knife. Mm-hmm. And I mean, my husband and I fight over it. I have a rack of knives that I've collected over the years, and we both only use the Damascus knife. And so anyway, I do get discounts from them because I've decided to partner with them because I love it so much. So if you type in Anja Lee, ANJALEE on NakanoKnives.com, you get 20% off, which I think is very generous. And then what else do I love? I love my food processor and my blender, but people who don't have a food processor, mom, get a big one. You need to be able to like make that really awesome sauce. Just kidding. She has a cute little one, but I hound her about it because I'm like, to make pesto, you gotta be able to fit all that basil in there, or chimichurri or whatever it might be. I use my food processor all the time. And a Le Creuset or something of that sort, a big, hefty, thick bottom, ceramic, slow cooker, really helpful. I love my plug-in slow cooker. I keep it in the pantry most of the time, but once in a while to cook some homemade beans. They're just game changers, so they're awesome. You get them dried and then cook them slowly. And then finally, I'd say pots and pans wise, I love my one, oh my gosh, why am I blanking on the name? Classic big and black pan. Why am I thinking? Help me out here, Whitney. Thank you. Cast iron. Yeah. I don't know why I always blank on the word cast iron. I love my cast iron. And that's always sitting on my stove because it's so pretty. And then I'm obsessed with my new copper pots and pans. I got those recently. Yeah, from Mauviel, Mauviel. It's a French brand. They're way too expensive, but thanks to a little bit of wedding money, it helped. And they just cook so perfectly. They're really cool and rustic looking. I feel like I'm a true French chef so they use in France. And copper heats up really fast, so it's very fun to play with the heat on copper. So
since you love cooking and you teach people how to cook, do you ever take cooking classes when you travel?
I do. Yes. For my birthday this year, we were actually in Paris, and my mom and dad bought me a cooking class. And what's neat about cooking is that it's a never-ending journey, right? There's always more to learn, and someone else has a trick up their sleeve that you have never encountered. And also, we get in our ruts. We start cooking in certain ways a lot, over and over and over. So, this French cooking class taught me different ways to make ratatouille that I had not tried before. I've always done it in the pot, and they started roasting the vegetables, and it gave it a nice twist. They taught how to make this really great creamed cauliflower soup and put all these curry spices on it. And I hadn't really tackled that before. And we really dove into emulsifying like a beurre blanc sauce. And sometimes stuff like that, you need reminders on how to really emulsify, which I was able to then use that technique to teach a recent homemade mayonnaise class that we had with our sushi class. So yeah, I definitely love taking cooking classes. I probably don't do it enough, but I try to because it's so helpful.
Yeah, I find when I travel, I want to take cooking classes. Sometimes it's hard to find them. Do you have any tips on how to search for cooking classes when you travel?
I think it's probably pretty typical. I'm usually looking on Google or Airbnb experiences. Those are pretty helpful. Things like that. But I really try for gifts. I try to tell, if my family or whatever, like, what should we get you for your birthday or Christmas? Like, get me an experience. Get me a cooking class. That's the best gift. And my brother and sister, for instance, I'm not good at researching that stuff, to be honest. My brother and sister got me this amazing cheese and wine tasting in France last year or 2 years ago. And again, I learned so much. And I thought I knew so much about cheese and wine. And I couldn't believe what I learned. But I didn't find it. They did. So have other people find it for you. That's my best advice. You don't have to do that.
I would second that. One of the best experiences I had was a biltong and wine tasting experience at a winery in South Africa. I didn't find it. I think my brother and my mom found it. And it goes down as one of the most fun experiences we had with food and wine.
Wow. That's incredible. Wait, what is biltong?
So in South Africa, they call their beef jerky biltong, and they don't use sugar or additives. It's just really good, traditionally dried meats, and they use all different wild game. So you're getting their version of wild deer and wild elk and all their wild animals. So kudu's one of them. I can't even remember the names of all their different wild deers, and it is so good. And it was really nice because when you're drinking wine, it's, sugary. And so to have some sort of protein to ground you, you felt a lot better sampling the wines.
That makes sense. Yeah, to have that substance. I bet also that the bit of saltiness really balanced well with those wines and the sweetness like you were talking about, depending on what wines they are. Wow, biltong. I got to look that up.
So when you're in South Africa or in Africa at all, I highly suggest from the moment you get off the plane, find a little store, a little grocery store, a little market, and get a ton of biltong as your snacks while you're in the country. It's the best. You're starting to see biltong in the grocery stores and health food stores here in the U.S. At Whole Foods and Erewhon, I see it now. You'll see it branded, but it's not the same. Because also it's done with beef, and theirs isn't done with beef.
Okay, because it's got all that wild game.
Right? Yeah, and
amazing.
It's just a little different, but I highly suggest it.
I'm taking you for a ride while we're talking because I have to grab the doorbell. But okay, so biltong, I'm noting it.
Yes. So since you love inspiring people to eat healthy and try new recipes, is there anything that you are wanting to try this season or to start cooking for yourself?
I've been experimenting a lot more with Asian flavors recently. And that's because, number one, I've spent so much time on French and European style food for my whole life because I love it. My family loves it. It's a big part of our world. But I've had so many requests for more Asian style cooking. So I'm really hoping to dive in and learn a lot more about that. And then what else? Well, I think that's a good start. I think that's a good answer because that's a big one. There's a lot in that.
Absolutely. So where do you like to keep turning to learn more about health and wellness and food?
I love listening to podcasts. I love reading books. Podcasts, I jump from one to the other, to the other, to the other all the time. But some of the trendy ones, the Huberman Lab is fun. I think his philosophy is interesting. I love listening to different women podcasts and love listening to yours, all your guests that are coming on. Yeah. Monica Groney has been really interesting to me lately. She looks a lot at like women hormones and balancing those with your lifestyle and with your food. And I love Women's Health Magazine and Liz Plosser. She's the editor-in-chief, and she's super into protein, and it's really fun to see what she has to offer. I'm paying a lot of attention to sports all the time by default because my husband loves to watch sports, so I like to see what different athletes in the fields are doing. And then tons of books. There's so many books. Like I really love seeing like what Michael Pollan is up to, and he's really into just local foods and what our experience is with food and whatnot. And gosh, I gotta look at my long list of books here next to me. I have about 100 health books and cookbooks. Trying to think if there are any others that I really recommend. It's a journey. I'm always looking.
Yeah, one always leads to another. I think that's been the greatest thing about your story is like you just keep every opportunity that comes, you take it, you enjoy it, you explore it, and you know you don't have to live with it forever, and then the next one naturally evolves.
Absolutely. I'm like, man, if there's a way I can spend all day doing this and I can make money and sustain my life, but I can be learning about my health and new flavors and new ways to get me excited and meeting new people and new cool tools. Like, what a rich life that is. That is success in a nutshell. So, yeah, it's not always easy, but being able to ride this journey is pretty cool. I'm very lucky.
It's really impressive what you've built, and I think everyone will see that when they go and visit your website and your Tiny Kitchen Club cooking classes website. I'll have all those links at the bottom and in the show notes. It's really impressive what you've built.
Thank you, Whitney. Also, quick shout out. You want to tell us what you're making in your class on April?
Yeah. So if you guys want to join the two of us in the kitchen on Thursday, April 27th, we'll be cooking in the late afternoon together. We're going to be doing a classic whole roast chicken with super crispy skin. I'm going to teach you the tricks that I learned to make the skin crispy. And I mean, this is what I do every time I cook a roast chicken for my clients or for myself. And then we're also going to be doing a really yummy grounding root vegetable mashed potatoes with ghee. And I'll show you my tricks there without adding like extra cream or dairy. And they just come out absolutely delicious, and it's great for meal prep. And then we'll just do a nice spring asparagus, and it'll be a perfect balanced meal.
Amazing. Make sure in that class too, Whitney, I know there's some people that won't eat dairy, but make sure to talk about the benefits of ghee, because I think that's a really important conversation that I have not had with them yet. So
yeah, absolutely. It's great brain food, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then, and then being that you have such great French and European culinary, experience, clarified butter is just a similar version to ghee. Just hasn't been cooked as long, so the flavor isn't as rich. But another option, if people just happen to be casually making some clarified butter at their house, they could use that as well.
I know, once in a blue moon, you hear about someone doing that.
Hey, it's so interesting, especially nowadays. So many people have very interesting food hobbies, things that they always make weekly. Like you'll meet the most random man or woman on the street who happens to make their own sourdough bread, or who happens to love making their own kimchi. Everyone has such interesting hobbies. That's what I love learning.
And it's so self-rewarding. Every single person can have that thing that they love to make, and there's nothing better than doing it yourself. So, yeah.
Agreed. Is there anything that you or your husband make sure that you are always making kind of once a month for your fridge or your pantry?
Yeah, I mean, pretty typical, but the easy thing that we go to is we love Banza, whether it's pasta or like the homemade pizza crust. Like, that's it's Thursday night, I've had a, busy Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm probably making some simple, high protein, high fiber pasta tonight with Banza. So we do that a lot. But like for passion, for like what we love to eat, we love that too. But for like something that's a little more time intensive, we love to make French tarts. And that is definitely one of my signature things. Yeah, is a savory French tart, whether it's a grilled eggplant tart, or a caramelized carrot and onion tart, or a summer tomato and cheese tart, or recently I made a caramelized potato tart. The list goes on and on and on. Or sometimes he'll make like more of a pot pie style, which is similar, and a homemade crust. So those are the go-to because we just love them. They're always great.
That is so impressive, because getting the crust done properly, that's very impressive.
Thanks. Well, we have it in class, so you'll have to join a crust class with me, and then we'll nail it.
Well, where can everyone that's listening, I know I'll have the show notes below, but tell them where they can find you, learn with you, and cook with you.
Yes. Well, first of all, hope to have you, because if you're listening to this and you made it this far, then we're meant to be friends, and we're meant to hang out in our kitchens together. So you can go to jointinykitchen.com, all right, jointinykitchen.com, And that will give you the basic outline of what this is all about. And then if you click the link there, it'll bring you to the class schedule where you can RSVP for your first class free. So come check it out. Everyone's welcome to come try a class for free. And then if you love it, you can sign up to be a member where you get access to all of our videos of all of our past classes, hundreds of recipes of all my favorite recipes. You get a cookbook, my cookbook at the 6-month mark. You also get part of our community who loves to see each other and cook together all the time. And there's tons of other perks, but the goal is to, help you cook more confidently in the kitchen and get excited from it, get that praise from your family for cooking a good meal. So join tinykitchen.com. And upcoming classes are miso shiitake ramen. We have a Buddha bowl class. We're going to talk about making a few easy sauces at home to make an easy Buddha bowl. We've got Whitney's class, the crispy, delicious whole roasted chicken. We have a Mother's Day olive oil cake and limoncello. And then we have a Cinco de Mayo tacos class where we're going to make carnitas with mushrooms and pork, your choice. So anyway, tons of fun to be had, Whitney. I hope you join for some other classes too, but I can't wait for yours.
I mean, the menu sounds delicious. And then you also do Instagram Live. So where can people find you on Instagram?
At AnjaLee.co. Great question. It's a little bit different because it goes with our main company, Anja Lee and Company. So at ANJA, Anja Lee, LEE.co. And I have tons of how-to videos on there as well, so you can check out what I've been cooking and what I have to offer you.
Can you leave our listeners with maybe one healthy tip they can consider adding into their life?
Sure. Which one is the question? I think something as simple as salt in your kitchen is really important to get a high-quality salt. It is often not that much more expensive at the store if you're looking and there's like table salt, kosher salt, and sea salt or pink Himalayan salt. Go for the sea salt or the pink Himalayan salt because those are the least processed salts and they're going to have all the nutrients, the minerals, everything that your body actually needs. And so don't cut salt out. Just use the right salts. The reason they tell you to cut salt out is because there's so much of these processed salts in a lot of those foods that we buy at the store. And those are stripped of everything that's good for you, but they hold on water weight in your body and don't make you feel very good. If you have the right salts, they digest correctly in your body and they'll make you, feel really great when you have them, but they'll also help you hold on to enough water that you feel hydrated. So, anyway, sea salt, pink Himalayan salt, replace your kosher salt in any recipe, replace your table salt. You'll feel much better.
I second that. And for everyone listening, I do have an episode that you can scroll back and look at that's all about salt and will help you better understand how to shop for it at the grocery store, why you should have it, how it keeps you hydrated, all that good stuff. So thank you. That's a great tip.
You got it. Love it. Love that you already did that.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm really looking forward to cooking with you, and I'm really hoping that everyone listening, we can support you in other ways, in person, over Zoom. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks, Whitney. This has been a blast. I love chatting with you, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for having me.